9 days to Big Ten football, with at least Minnesota playing on a Thursday night of week 1, 11 days for the rest of the conference, of course, as now the countdown is on and it's real and it's tangible and it feels like football is close. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat for the Big Ten Live show. And of course, we have left the call-in line there as well. It's Corey and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We just got done talking Iowa football, so check that out over on the Hawkeyes channel here at the Voice of College Football. Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Has there been a Big Ten game in week 0 more often than not since the inception of that early week? Or am I wrong on that? I know the Nebraska-Northwestern game comes to mind, but there have been others, correct?
And the year before Nebraska-Northwestern was Nebraska-Illinois.
And Nebraska lost that game too, correct?
Yes. They were a double-digit favorite in that game as well and lost. Yes.
It was that Brett Bielema's, that wasn't his debut. That was the year after his debut, correct? Or was it his debut year? I thought his debut year was actually...
Okay, the big week 0 games. Last year was Florida State, Georgia Tech, so that would have been 24. 23 would have been Notre Dame, Navy. So we're talking 2021 and 22 were those two Nebraska games.
And Bielema was hired in 2020, right? That was his first year was COVID?
No.
Or no, was it 21?
His first year would have been 2022.
You know why I'm confusing this? You're right, 2022. The reason I'm confusing that is because I remember him being on Zoom or Skype or whatever. Didn't they have some camera or did they interview him? But he was suspended, right? Or no, he was sick. How did that work? It was a week 0. Wasn't it the Nebraska-Illinois game? He wasn't there in person coaching? No, you're saying he got hired.
He wasn't the coach.
Yeah, so what game was that? There was a game, remember, he was the Illinois coach, and I think he was on Fox, and he was virtual.
That's right.
So we have something, there's something, people are going to have to clear this out,
folks. Yeah.
I remember that vividly. It was an early I thought it was week 0, and they had Brett Bielema tied in over Skype or something on the network. I think they interviewed him before the kickoff, but he was not able to be with the team.
I usually line it up best record-wise, and they just had the big season, 10-3. They were 5-7 in 23. They had a good season in 22.
Yep.
They went 8-5. So 2021 was his first season.
So that's when he was
5-7.
Must have been his debut in 2021 against Nebraska, and they won without him on the sidelines. That's right. I think that's right.
He was not on the sidelines for that game?
Do you want me to find out? Let's see.
I would love, because I cannot. All right. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I would have never thought of that, of Brett Bielema having a game in which he, was.
So, yeah, it was. This just says it was moved to. It was on Fox. Joe Davis and Brock Heward on the call, and
one of my favorites.
Illinois beat Nebraska 30-22. Game was supposed to be in Dublin, got moved to Champaign. And let's see here in 2021. Let's see, this will tell me what it is. When his first game. No, it doesn't say anything about him being on the sidelines. Oh, Bielema did not travel with the team to Iowa. That was in 21. Okay. So he had contracted COVID-19 in 2021. So yeah, we're just some weeks off, but it was 2021 when he was out due to COVID, but I guess it was the Iowa game. Okay.
And Iowa won that game against Illinois, right? In Bielema's first year?
Yes, but it was far too close. It was far too close for comfort. I believe
it was the next year that Illinois beat them like 9-6.
Yeah. And that was an Alex Padilla led team, or at least for that in that moment of time. Alex Padilla was the starting quarterback. Do you get these messages? I'm getting all this spam on Twitter, these message requests. Doctors have told me my cancer is incurable. I'd like to leave you with this sum of cash. I'm like, I understand that this is a old. Like, are we really doing this on Twitter now? Does that really work on Twitter of all places? You'd think that Twitter is more, I guess it's not just the younger generation anymore, but I inherently, traditionally, I think of that as an email scam because you're targeting maybe those that are older age that aren't real savvy with technology, etc. But man, I keep getting these messages over and over again. Anyways.
Yes, I can't answer that question. I know that I'm hit with annoying ads, and I know that Twitter often defaults my setting from following to for you, and I want it on following. I don't want them to force feed me with stuff I don't want to see.
They would like to force feed you with things that you want to see, Mark. And I guarantee you what they feed you will make you angry because then you'll interact with it and it'll just feed the beast.
It does. It does.
That's how that works. Because whenever I see you reply to something and you're upset, I thought that had to be that had to be something that they force fed Mark. That's what it was. I know how this works.
And you're not even talking about football stuff.
Yeah, we don't really talk about anything other than sports. So when I see you comment on something not sports related, I'm thinking, okay, he clearly was force fed this by the Twitter beast.
Now, on the sports side of things concerning Big Ten football this week, of course, we had a ruling on the Michigan situation, and I would be just fine without discussing that. But since you brought up my Twitter account, I did have fun posting. Well, a number of things. I had about 5-6 straight tweets that I really enjoyed. One would be, this is the most tongue-in-cheek one that I enjoyed, was stating this, that of course now it's going to be the next 2 football seasons that Michigan is going to be without its head coach for at least 1 game. 2 games this coming fall, and then another game the next year. So it's really an unmatched legacy of on-the-job head coaching training for these assistant coaches that Michigan is going. It's truly remarkable.
I agree. It is remarkable. And so what games is Shamar Moore? Is it Shamar? I don't even remember the guy's name.
Moore.
Shamar Moore is that actor that starred in Criminal Minds. Sharon Moore.
He's missing a MAC game. I forget one of the Michigan schools. And then he is sitting out the Nebraska game on the road.
Good.
To open the Big Ten season.
Talk about Nebraska's schedule getting even easier. That's a Nebraska schedule that was already weak. And they're getting to play a Michigan team at home without their head coach. Wow. That could make for an interesting storyline because I saw, I know you bit of a rival, but you've had him on your show. Josh Pate came out with his preseason predictions. He's got Nebraska in his college football playoff, Mark.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. Josh Pate has Nebraska in his college football playoff. Isn't that something? Like, Josh Pate is at least a respectable guy.
Sure.
He's not some lunatic.
No.
So when I saw, I thought, obviously a lot of homebodies have been predicting that for years. And maybe there have been some major college football people, but he's somebody that I do respect the opinion of. So when I saw that, I kind of cocked my head. But then you look at the schedule; it's very favorable. We could talk about it, but boy, to have that game without Sharon Moore, that's something.
Yeah, we'll go to Nebraska's schedule because when it comes to Josh Pate, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. He seems like a really nice guy. And again, I've talked to him twice in my life, so it's not like I know the guy, but he seems like a really nice guy. But I have not partaken of his content to know if he knows what he's talking about. But he has built up a big brand, obviously. So I got to think that that's heavily influenced by the schedule. And schedules are big in college football. They are big.
That's why it's a fair. I mean, it's not. He's not saying that he thinks they're one of the 12 best teams, right?
Yeah.
He's just saying he thinks they're going to make the playoff.
I said something similar when they were ranked in the preseason top 25. I said, I don't think they're one of the 25 best teams in the country. but that doesn't mean that they're not going to finish in the top 25.
Well, now hold on a second. In my opinion, and then you're going to differ on this. We've talked about polls and all this for a long time, but I believe there should be a difference between the polls and the playoff and seeding, who gets into the field. To me, a poll should be strictly based on resume, but because and that's why polls, like, I'm fine with polls. I don't even need humans to do polls because the humans don't even watch enough of the games to come up with accurate polls anyways. Okay. But the reality is when you have humans trying to make 12 teams, there's going to be some of the evidence is already there. Like who is best equipped to play. Florida State is an example, right? They lose their quarterback at the end of the season. And 2 years ago, right? What was their record? Were they 11-1?
12-0, 13-0.
Oh, they were 13-0 and missed out on the playoff?
They won the ACC. Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, an example, though. There's always going to be the human factor of, well, this team had this happen at this point. This team had this happen at this point. So I don't think it should strictly be based on resume. That's what I'm saying. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't really care about polls anyways. To me, it really shouldn't matter. What should matter is the 12. Now it's the 12-team playoff, and then just order of bowl selections. I don't know why we need a little number next to these program names anyways, but I don't think you and I both agree on this. Nebraska, just because they're projected to go 9-3 does not mean they're one of the top 25 teams in the country. And so I would hope that if you made your rankings right now, you're not projecting record. You're projecting who you think are the 25 best teams in the country, which would mean that even you might predict a Tennessee or an Ole Miss end up at 7-5 or 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
And in the top 25, Nebraska may be 9-3 and outside the top 25 because those two SEC teams had more difficult records. Their strength of record is better than Nebraska's potentially. So, anyways, rant over.
That's maybe what I would come up with a top 25 this week. You've inspired me. Maybe.
And remember, Josh Pate or anybody else who's projecting the playoff. I'm not planning on coming out with a playoff projection because I just don't. Well, maybe I could do that. I guess. Sure. Do you think people would like that, Mark? Do they care
I have yet to do it. And that's one of my staple projects, but I haven't done it yet. And there are games in 3 days.
You need to do it, and you need to make it into a graphic. Have one of your minions make it into a graphic. It can't just be a video. It needs to be a graphic. Have a minion do it. But my point in bringing that up would be Josh Pate. I have no problem with him predicting Nebraska in the field because he's just predicting what he thinks will happen given the schedule and what he thinks those humans evaluating things will do. He's not saying who he would put in at the end of the year or who he had put in as the 12 best teams right now. He's just projecting what he thinks will happen. So, yeah, it did surprise me a little bit, but you talked about Nebraska's schedule. They get that game at Arrowhead. Cincinnati's down anyways. It's traditionally been a pretty good program. But, that game was supposed to be a true road game. Now it's really not. It's an Arrowhead Stadium. There'll be more red there than black. So I predict they'll win that one. They'll beat Akron week 2. They play Houston Christian, or isn't it Houston Christian week 3? It says HCU, but that's Houston Christian, right? And then Michigan without their head coach. You get a bye week. Then you get Michigan State at home. They get a road game at Maryland, road game at Minnesota. That's a tricky one, but that's probably a pick 'em even in Huntington Bank Stadium. Northwestern at home, USC at home, tricky game, but again, it's at home. At UCLA, tricky game, very winnable. And then at Penn State, Iowa. That's the toughest stretch, isn't it? Something you could very easily argue. The two toughest games on the schedule, Mark, are games 11 and 12, right? Those are the two toughest games in the schedule. The last two on the schedule. So what if Nebraska is, I'm not predicting this, but even if they're 8-2, like I don't even think 8-2, that's not a crazy prediction. That is not a crazy prediction given that schedule. I mean, yeah, maybe you could make the argument that Michigan at home, even without Michigan's head coach, that's still a tougher game than Iowa at home. Yeah, okay, sure, you can make that argument, but I don't know that. I could see them going into the final two games of the season with losses to hey, they lose to Michigan, and frankly, they could win every other game. They could. They could go into that. I don't think they're going to probably win them all. I think they'll probably trip up somewhere, especially with a Michigan on the schedule. It may not be against Michigan, but the likelihood of them winning all those games is low. But man, if they end up 9-1 heading into the last two games, what a storyline that will be. Can you imagine?
Nebraska went 7-6 last year. That was their first winning season since, I believe, 2016. And the best team that Nebraska beat, do you care to make a guess on from a record standpoint?
I need to know who they beat. Let's see. I would say the best team. I'm looking through their wins.
Well, in the Big Ten, the best team they beat was Rutgers.
I was going to say either Rutgers or Wisconsin.
7-6.
Yeah, they beat Colorado.
They beat Colorado outside the conference. Yes. So the more I look at this schedule, and I know that it's been ranked the worst schedule in the Big Ten or the easiest schedule in the Big Ten, but Michigan is a substantially better team than Nebraska. Not that they're not going to have a shot, because we know what happens in a tough road environment. For example, Michigan went there in 2021 en route to the playoff and the Big Ten championship, and were a much better team than Nebraska that went 4-8 or whatever and almost lost. It was 32-29. But I do not think they're going to beat Michigan. And I think they are going to trip up against somebody named Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota on the road, Northwestern, one of those teams.
But you see what I'm saying as far as
no, I'm not. I would not be surprised. It's certainly possible. Yeah, they could be 10-0.
And there's just first of all, Iowa's had years like that too. Not since the inception of the new Big Ten, but Iowa's had plenty of years where you look at the schedule, you're like, man, everything shapes up. And I think Iowa's schedule is substantially tougher than Nebraska. I do think it's good that for Iowa fans that you get Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana all at home. But then you look at Nebraska's schedule. Everything that I just ran through, Mark, like not only is it a pretty favorable schedule overall, but the makeup of it. Like I said, the fact that Cincinnati game got moved that much closer to home, the fact that Michigan will be down their head coach, the best team on the schedule is going to be down their head coach, or at least the second best team on the schedule, maybe behind Penn State, is down their head coach heading into the game. I think the UCLA game on the road, that's maybe my underrated game on the schedule. And I've already, first of all, because I've labeled UCLA as my dark horse in the conference, not to win the conference, but to be a +2 win team, although they have a difficult conference slate. But that's going to be a difficult game to cross the two time zones and play. I think the bye week works out really well right after Michigan, right? Between the two Michigan teams, that works out really well. To only have to play their road games are not a long trip to Minnesota, a Maryland team that's probably one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the conference. And again, at UCLA, and then Cincinnati, it's not a real road game. That should be, can I just say this? That should be weighed by the playoff committee. If we're going to have a discussion about Nebraska being in the field, if they are a 10-2 team, I had this discussion with my guy Kyle Spence on Iowa channel yesterday about Iowa. If they're 10-2, I said they're in no matter what the 10-2 looks like. And Kyle's not convinced of that because there were no 9-3 teams that made it last year, right? So is it feasible that a 10-2 team could miss out on the playoffs? Sure, it's possible, right, Mark? It is possible that a 10-2 big team misses out. But I just think collectively Iowa's schedule is too difficult. Nebraska's schedule is not too difficult to miss out at 10-2. And I'm not advocating for it before it even happens. But like if they go and they beat Cincinnati and say they get waxed by Michigan without their head coach, and they get waxed by Penn State, and maybe they sneak by Iowa in that last game, and that's their one real good win. If I'm the committee, I'm going to look at some of what we just talked about. I'm going to look at that and say, look, Michigan was down their head coach and waxed him. That Cincinnati game got moved, and you had probably 60,000 fans in that Arrowhead Stadium for that game. That's not a real road game. We're not going to weigh that like any other road victory across the Power Four conferences. I think that's when you get into you start to look at the fine nature of all these wins and losses. But Houston, who's scheduling Houston Christian? I mean, who's scheduling Albany? I guess Iowa did that, but Houston Christian.
You're motivating me to release prediction videos and to do all the conferences. And I initially had Nebraska at 8-4, but now that I look at it, I am really high on this Cincinnati upset possibility. I am really tempted to pull the trigger on this right out of the gate.
What are you talking about? What do you mean you're tempted
That
to pull it?
Cincinnati's going to beat Nebraska.
Why?
Why?
What I just convinced you of that?
No. I've been thinking about this for months and months and months and months.
For what reason, though? What? Give me the
Cincinnati is capable of winning this game. I think it's very telling from Vegas that Nebraska is only a touchdown favorite. Do you know how many teams in the Big Ten would be 14, 21, 24-point favorites against Cincinnati? That's not a lot of confidence.
Okay. Well, 7
Cincinnati's
is
they are not a horrible football team. They are quarterbacked by former Indiana quarterback Brendan Sorsby. They are not a horrible football team.
I'm not saying they're a horrible football team. What
Nebraska
I'm saying is
could pull, they could pull a Nebraska.
So let me ask you this. Is Vegas weighing this as a road game for Nebraska?
I don't know what they're doing. They're aware where the game is and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because typically they say, well, you get 2.5 to 3 points for home field advantage, and this is still considered a home game for Cincinnati, which is stupid. That's the reason I asked the question.
They lose to Cincinnati, I can see 5 losses because I can see the Michigan loss. Again, I grouped Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern together with a trip up somewhere, most likely Minnesota. USC at home, but UCLA the next week going to the Rose Bowl. Maybe they split those two, and then Penn State, Iowa, split those two. 5 losses.
Holy cow, though. What an start to college football. You get Iowa State, Kansas State in Ireland, week 0. And then you get a very underrated Cincinnati, Nebraska game on a Thursday. Late night. Yes. How many Big Ten games do we get? Not that I think ESPN is the best network for college games, but it is sort of a unique thing to see a Big Ten game on ESPN because contractually, like I say, this is going to be a de facto home game, I think, for Nebraska. And the reason it's on ESPN is because it's a Cincinnati home game. I just find that funny. John, thank you for being a YouTube member. We appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you for that, John. And before we get to this call, I do want to say something about John becoming a member. So we do appreciate that. And I believe I noticed today, John, that you became a member, our first member on the Miami channel. So just know that we are cleaning things up over there, and you'll get like special emojis and whatever they're called, badges and so forth and so on as a Miami member as well. So thank you for that, John. And Bilal has become a new member as well. So Bilal, thank you so much for that. Here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you for gearing it up for us for this season. And Bilal, you've been here for a long time, so thank you for your membership. We got the real MVP on the line, so we'll bring in the real MVP.
Anytime I see Corey Bratta, the great Corey Bratta, I got to call in. So, Corey, I just love your naivete when it comes to the playoff. It's like endearing in a way. Like, you think they take into account road games? You think they take into account wins, strength of schedule, all this stuff?
I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm saying what they should do.
I agree with you. I'll tell you what they will do. How many wins do you have? Do you have over 10? You're in. Do you have less than 10? You're out.
Well, that's not totally true because like we said last night on our show on my channel, there is a potential for there to be too many teams with 10 wins. That is possible. That happens.
I mean, yeah, there's also the potential we didn't land on the moon either, but
But Drill, nobody with 10. There were no 9-3 teams in last year, correct, Mark?
Correct.
So that's how little margin of error we're talking about. It doesn't really matter. The whole reason I brought this up is because, like I said about Josh Pate, the prediction of Nebraska being in, you and I agree, Drill. I believe that the committee, based on history, will value their 10 wins way too much. So I'm just saying I hope that if they get to 10 wins, maybe they do deserve to get in with 10 wins because they're still playing a Big Ten schedule. But I just hope that if what I just kind of described happens, that the committee will weigh how they lost those 2 games, who they beat, what that game in Cincinnati was really. Was it really a road game? Because it was not, or we all know that. Those are the things that, yeah, the committee doesn't have to look at one. That's the thing about it. Like, that's just like the NCAA tournament committee has a totally different task on their hand. Totally different task. They're having to go through how many at-large teams? Darrell, you probably know the answer. I don't.
I think 37.
37. So they got to go through 50, at least 50 to 60 real contenders to, weave through resumes and all. The College Football Playoff Committee has to go through, as of right now, what, 7? I'm sorry, 7, correct? Plus the teams that won't make it. So in total, maybe you're talking 10, 11, maybe. That's not that difficult. And I'm not trying to downplay the enormity of the task at hand. It is a big assignment, but I'm just saying, like, you ought to be able to go through a 12-game schedule for Nebraska and dissect what happened, what happened with the crowd, who was coaching, who was present, who was not. And if the committee can't do that, then the committee has failed the sport.
Yeah, I was saying this all last year when Alabama had 4 wins better than anything SMU and Indiana had, and that wasn't even factored into the equation at all. Or how many?
We don't know that. You're just saying that because you.
No, I think it's pretty decisive by the committee's own rankings. Alabama had much better wins than SMU did. SMU's best win was Louisville all year. According to the committee's own rankings, Alabama had much better wins than SMU.
Is this about SMU or is this about Indiana? Just to clarify.
Okay.
Because you said
Alabama had 4 better wins according to the committee's rankings than SMU. That's just a factual statement. That's according to the committee. That's not according to me, Mark, anybody. But they didn't even factor their own rankings in when picking the teams.
They also hold on. They also had some crap losses. Okay. They also had some crap performances.
Oh, I agree with you. My problem is they don't even take the other side of the coin into a consideration. Well, I'm not upset at the conclusion that's reached. I'm upset how the process to determine the conclusion was reached.
Just to separate something here, Corey, what do you consider a crap loss? Because I just want to stay consistent in assessing these teams.
Did they not lose to Oklahoma?
Oklahoma was a 6-6 football team. I'm just asking what a crap team is.
That's a crap loss for a team we're talking about.
All right,
large berth into the playoff.
Okay.
Who did Indiana?
I'm not saying it's not. I just know that in these kind of conversations, sometimes a crap team is defined something here, and then suddenly they're a good team. They went to a bowl game. They're decent.
I think 6-6. Here. I think 6-6 when you play in a Power 4 conference is probably crap. It relative to Power 4 football, especially when you have baked into your schedule 2 or 3 non-conference wins. I don't know who Oklahoma played last year in the non-conference, but that was not. We would all agree that's not a good loss. And I'm not arguing for the committee or against the committee, Darrell, but what I'm saying is you don't know what's happening behind those closed doors. There's also value in. There's also comparing losses, right? Like the fact that Alabama.
Oh, I agree. I just wish these things were stated publicly. Like, we know the basketball tournament's formula.
Alabama lost to a 6-6. Yeah, I'm fine with. Yes, those things should be more out in the open than they probably are. But 6-6, Oklahoma. Who did Indiana lose to?
6-6 Vanderbilt as well.
And 6-6 Vanderbilt. Who did Indiana lose to?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Who did SMU lose to?
Who did they lose? They lost 3 games. Clemson.
They lost to BYU and Clemson.
Yeah, BYU and Clemson.
And Clemson was in the Big Ten or the ACC title game, right?
Correct.
So I'm just saying, like, that's apples to oranges too. I'm not saying it
outweighs. I understand. Listen, I'm not upset with the conclusion. I'm not upset with the pick. I'm upset how we got to the pick, and the fact that we're talking about road games, neutral site games, home games. We're talking about head coaches being absent. I don't think the committee takes any of this into factor at all.
Well, I take it into account with my predictions. I'll tell you that.
I know, and that's what's unfortunately, I think, is going to make our predictions wrong. Is we take too much into account. I think we all need to simplify it down. That's why I got Toledo making the playoffs this year, because they play a crap schedule, but they're going to probably go 12-0.
I think the committee is more apt to do that with a Power 4 qualifier, because I think the idea is, and maybe I'm oversimplifying how the committee would look at excuse me, not Power 4, G6 qualifiers, because my hunch is that the committee would be more apt to just awarding a team with a better record, and because they don't feel like people care that much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Are we going to really dissect? Are they really going through and dissecting Coastal Carolina versus Toledo versus?
Well, I mean, they should. That's their job.
They should. But I think in general, their priority is going to be the 2 number 1 conferences, and then after those top 2 is going to be, 2A and 2B in the ACC and the Big 12.
Right. What my problem with the committee is their job feels like, let's figure out the way we can take the least amount of damage within public perception as humanly possible. That's what I feel like their ultimate goal is. And if you chart that out over the last 10 years, you would have gotten literally every single playoff pick correct. And that's what they'll do this year. What is the path of least resistance at the end of the year? You find it, that's who's going to be in the playoffs. So, and also, Josh Pate's, I don't know what he was thinking when making his playoff picks. He has Florida and Georgia playing in the first round of the playoffs. That's not going to happen. They're not going to match up 2 teams from the same conference playing against one another. So I would take his playoffs with a very large grain of salt in general.
Well, why would he do that, though? Seems like a very juvenile mistake to make. If that's
I don't know.
Not going to happen, why would he predict that? He could have matched up 2 other teams. Why would he predict 2 SEC teams? Now, I remember this isn't a Josh Pate show. I don't make this about Josh Pate, but I'm just saying this is the second year of the new format, Darrell. So I don't know that you know what they're going to do. I don't think any of us know what they're going to do.
I understand, but over the last 10 years of when they've had the playoff committee, I understand it was 4 and they've expanded it as well. They've never had 2 teams play each other from the same conference. So it's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. But anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you, gentlemen. I'm going to head out.
Thanks, Darrell.
Well, he got out of here quickly.
He did. But we hear from Darrell on a regular basis, so he'll be back. We do have another caller lined up, and that's Keith. Keith, we appreciate you being here.
Hey, Mark. It's good to talk to you again.
Absolutely. What's going on?
Hey, a little correction. There was 1 9-3 team in last year. Clemson as conference champion.
Yeah, well, that's why I said earlier, was it yesterday on the show?
Good job.
Earlier, Mark. Obviously, we're talking about they didn't have to evaluate that Clemson.
Yeah, there was no selection made of a 9-3 team. Yeah.
But yeah, point.
Yes. Thanks for Keith catching us.
Right. Right. I remember.
Well, they were 10-3 after they won the conference championship game.
10-3, but yeah, three loss team though. But that's right. Okay, 3 loss thing. Right. Yeah, and Mark, I'm going to give you credit for this, is that because you said this a few years ago, that as a team is going through the year, like Indiana, and they're beating teams along the way, USC, Michigan, I think maybe Washington was in there too.
Yes, not USC, but Washington. Yes.
Yeah, but they're climbing as they go, and they keep winning. They're climbing, and so Indiana is ranked ahead of Alabama, South Carolina, and who was it? LSU, the third
Ole
one.
Miss. Yes.
Ole Miss. In the final rankings, and they were the week before that, and the week before that. That was you, right, Mark?
I've said so much in the last 5 to 10 years. I don't recall making that type of an assessment. Yeah, basically, when teams win, yes, they climb up the rankings.
Mark, yeah. I got to head out, but I'm gonna let you finish this call with Keith. I know you'll do well. I have confidence in you, Keith. Thank you for being here, and it's nothing personal. I promise. All right.
Thanks, Corey. We'll see you. Everybody catch Corey from the Hawkeye of the Storm. All right. Yeah, Keith, so your point about Indiana, obviously, the knock on Indiana was the schedule, which they could not control the Big Ten schedule that they were given. They won all the games. They lost to one of the best teams in the country. What was impressive about Indiana, Keith, and I think you'll agree with this, is that, they couldn't control their Big Ten schedule, but they dominated that schedule. Michigan played them great, but besides that, all those wins were easy wins, dominant wins.
You're right. They smoked a bunch of Big Ten teams.
Oh, they beat Nebraska by 7 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same thing's going to happen this year. The teams that win, and I can't even go back to 97. I remember Nebraska was winning every week, and remember the press would always complain about them. You might have been with ESPN at the time. I don't know if you were even there yet. Not quite. Okay, but you would have been reporting if you were on ESPN at the time is that Nebraska won by 4 touchdowns, but no touchdown pass or 1 touchdown pass. And they were, but they had to realize, they had to continually rate Nebraska as one of the few best teams in the country, even though they had a criticism along the way. Whoever wins climbs up the rankings.
Yes, what you are saying is, and has been overwhelmingly, the approach of whether it's the College Football Playoff Committee or before them, the AP rankings and the coaches rankings. One exception I'll give you, in 2014, Florida State was the only undefeated team in the country, and they finished number 3 in the country in the playoff rankings because they played a very sloppy schedule. They played a weak schedule in the ACC, and they just escaped week after week after week after week. And so Alabama and Oregon were ranked ahead of Florida State as 1-loss teams that year.
Yeah, and you get the UCFs, and sometimes Army will go on a 10-game win streak, and those teams don't get the same respect. Yes.
Well, I'm talking about Florida State, though.
Yes, and I don't remember that. I don't remember that specific instance, but they finished what in the rankings?
Number 3. They were undefeated.
Undefeated, yeah.
That was Jameis Winston's last season, 2014. That was the first year of the playoff.
Okay, so but they were 3rd and they won the title with Winston, didn't they? Or did they win it earlier with Winston?
No, that was the year before they won the title. In this particular year, they got rocked by Oregon at the Rose Bowl in the playoffs.
Oh, they got rocked in the playoffs by Oregon. But was it BCS back then, or was it the playoffs?
No, this is the playoff. This is the first year of the playoff in 2014. Alabama was number 1. Oregon was 2. Ohio State was 4. They all had 1 loss. Florida State was number 3. They were undefeated.
Okay, that's right. That was the first year of the playoff. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, but they got in. So they were respected for their record, but they just didn't get and that's because they're the committee and the AP did this too, was that if you were a Big Ten or especially an SEC championship back in that day, if you were the SEC champion, you were going to get number 1 billing. You could have probably lost 2 games maybe and still been number 1 in the rankings.
Yes.
Yeah. So that it was, and back then the SEC did dominate. I believe between 2005 and 2015, they won 8 or 9 natties.
Yes. They won them all in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, 12. That was the last year. And then Florida State in 2013, Ohio State in 14. So they broke the streak. And then the SEC got back at it in 2015 and 17 and 19 and 20, 21, 22. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was some of the beginning of the SEC bias, but it was well deserved.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no question that the SEC was the best conference from about the time that you stated, about 2005 up until a couple of years ago. There's really no way to debate it. It's not close, anything like that. But I do think that because that reputation was built, and built legitimately, it did become slightly hyperbole where the SEC was given the benefit of the doubt. Certainly, it's kind of difficult not to win the national championship in 2011 when both of your teams are playing in the national championship game. For example.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, the SEC got, I used to have this number locked in my head, but during the playoff era, the 14 playoff era, had by far the most teams in the playoff because they had a team every year. They were the only conference that had a team in every year.
Yeah.
Plus, they had two in 2017. Another year in there, I'm forgetting.
I thought it would have been close to every other year, but you've got
2021. Yeah, they're all in my head, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But Georgia, Alabama in 2017 and Georgia, Alabama in 21.
Yeah. So I want to get off of this subject just by reiterating, if you want to get in the playoffs, win your games is the best way to get in.
Yeah, that has yet to fail, except Florida State in 2023.
Yeah. Did you hit the Heider news today yet?
Well, I did not, but of course, our friends at the Michigan channel that run that so well for me, our buddies TJ and John, I believe they did a live stream.
They did a live stream. I was watching. I didn't call into it, but they were pretty busy, and I was at the VA getting a procedure, so timing wasn't the best.
Okay, we hope you're doing all right.
Yeah, but did you know today is Bryce Underwood's 19th birthday? Did you hear that?
He's 19. Okay.
Yeah, today was his 19th birthday, and when Heider and somebody else recognized this before me, so I can't say I put it together, but it was one of the national guys, I think, Josh Pate or somebody. But they said Savion Heider announced on Bryce Underwood's birthday. So I called into the Thursday show and I told them that. I said, this looks like it might be a good birthday present for Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, that might have been the subliminal message that Heider was trying to pass along to everyone to see if anyone would pick up on that. Maybe.
Yeah. So Ohio State lost another 5-star to Michigan. That doesn't happen very often, does it?
It looks like it's happening more and more often these days.
I know. And you guys are down to 9th in the recruiting ranks?
I have not looked at the recruiting rankings for a little while, but that sounds about right because they were like 4th or 5th, and they've lost a few battles here and there. One to Auburn the other day. But it is August. We'll see where it shakes out. Where's Michigan in the rankings right now?
Couple below. I think you guys are 9th. I think we're 11th with Tennessee between us.
Okay, we'll give it a look right now.
Yeah, so that looks like quite a backfield. Underwood and Heider, that could be something, although I don't give them credit till they show their stuff on the field.
Well, sure. Fans should get excited about recruiting rankings. They really should, but it's no guarantee. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But most of the time it works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that could be entertaining too. There you go.
Actually, Michigan's up at number 10.
Oh yeah, that's right. We jumped from 11 to 10 with the signing of Heider. I saw it right before, and then I saw another short that said we jumped up a spot. So yeah, when they were looking at it earlier, Michigan and Tennessee were reversed.
Now, I will say this, Keith, that we also have to consider not just the overall ranking there, but see this average player ranking over here?
That rating, the average rating, right.
So Ohio State's fairly strong there at 92.2 and Michigan's at 91.4. Now I'm not going to make a big deal out of that.
Right.
Because again, these guys are all really good players. They between the two of them, Ohio State's got 14 blue chippers, and Michigan's got 15. So it's a neck and neck class.
Somebody looking from 10,000 feet would say that we're tied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's close enough to a tie. So that's a good step for Michigan. That's a step back for Ohio State, though.
Yeah, because obviously Michigan has taken what I don't know if the NFL draft has really proven this out, because Michigan's done extremely well in the NFL draft the last 4 years. But if you look at recruiting rankings, obviously Michigan's had a slightly inferior team, but they've been able to coach them up and develop them and beat the crap out of Ohio State.
Do you know I predicted this 3 or 4 months ago?
Predicted this recruiting situation.
Yes, that Ohio State was going to fall in the rankings. And do you know what decision that was?
Was that based on the new? Go ahead.
Bork brought the NIL in-house.
Yeah.
All the clearinghouses have to go through Ohio State and have the offers approved. And I believe Ohio State's the only school that has done that so far.
Yeah, and so they're taking a long-term strategy. Now we'll see if that pays off in the long run and just cost them this season, or if it maybe was not the way to approach it.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, a recruit has a choice to go to LSU and get his money with no questions asked, or he's going to have to go to Ohio State and he'll get his money. Maybe he's got to answer a bunch of questions. You know, that's not a recipe for success.
Well, Ohio State apparently, unless somebody can call in and correct me or maybe give me some more insight into the situation, again, they're banking on this being the standard across the board fairly soon.
Right. But I don't know, and your people might be able to tell you if anybody else has adopted this. So far, I haven't heard of anybody else adopting this. Everybody else is going by the old rules.
Yeah, and I can't even tell you why, even if they're right, Ohio State is correct, and this is going to get straightened out, and everybody's going to be forced to go with the new rules here very soon. How this benefits them by getting in line first. I don't see that. I don't see that benefiting them. I just think that everyone else would just adjust to it and then have to go through the clearinghouse.
Yeah.
So I'm not understanding, and I might be missing something big in this. And since we've got an Ohio State show coming up on Thursday, maybe I'll ask our guys what they are thinking there.
Yeah.
Your buddy Moose is pointing out that Michigan's class is even better than it appears on the surface because they've got a kicker and they've got a long snapper in those rankings that brings down the average player ranking.
Oh, but that's got to be a few points. That's got to be a quarter of a point, probably.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to
I
tell
don't
you
know enough
that.
either. Yeah.
And I don't know if Ohio State has any special teams people that they have recruited. It does not appear so. No, none for Ohio State.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, do you remember a couple of years ago when I was talking to you about the 12-team playoff expansion? And I told you this was right a month after they went to the 12. And I told you, I said, this thing's going to be 16 and 26 at the next opportunity. It's going to automatically blossom to that. All the have-nots will argue for expansion. You know, all the haves will argue for to stay with the current or maybe step back a little bit. But the have-nots well outnumber the haves. And I also predicted that with the 12-team playoff, when there was a 14 playoff, conference championships made a lot of sense because you could be a 10 and one Auburn could go to the championship game and have to play a 9-2 Alabama, and Alabama could still get into the playoff by beating Auburn in the championship game. Probably not. I think they're in the same division. Maybe they wouldn't do that. But my example is that you have an extra chance to get into the playoff, and they made sense when there was 14. With 12 team, the championship games don't make any sense anymore because both teams are getting in most of the time for the SEC and the Big Ten. Yeah, and the Big 12, if the loser is not getting into the playoff, that's because the loser was not ranked in the top 12 to begin with. And so they'll get excluded for not being in the top 12, but they're not getting excluded for losing the game. And the committee said that we're not going to punish championship game losers. But in the latest Big Ten proposal, they're proposing to get rid of the Big Ten championship games and have a bunch of play-in or playoff games in place.
Yeah, so the committee was in a difficult situation there because I do, in theory, agree with the approach that, okay, these other teams were not subjected to having to expose themselves in a championship game situation. Therefore, we shouldn't hold it against the losers of these championship games that they lost them. Well, there's a number of reasons why this doesn't make sense. Number one, we're evaluating the winner of the championship game, obviously. They are becoming the champion of the league and gaining an automatic spot in the playoff, if not a top 4 seeding this past year by winning the conference championship. So how do you evaluate the winner but not evaluate the loser? It's another data point. It's one of the most important data points of the season for these teams. They're playing one of the best. In the case of, let's say, SMU, they're playing the best team, unless you want to say BYU. They're playing the best team that they've played the entire season. How do you not evaluate that game? My 2 questions, Keith, if I were Reese Davis, who was interviewing the committee chair as soon as the selections came out, and we knew going into the weekend that they made this statement that they're not holding these games against the losers of the conference championship games, my first question would have been, did you watch the conference championship games? And if they would have answered yes, I would have told them why. You should not have watched the conference championship games. Question number 2 would have been, let's say by chance they would have said, you know what? We held true to our word. We're not supposed to be evaluating these teams or swayed by these conference championship games. So we did not watch the conference championship games. My second question would have been, did you see the scores of the conference championship games? And again, they should have said no, because that would have fit their criteria to say, no, we just needed to know who won the game, because we can't have that clouding our evaluation of these teams. Now, obviously, that's ridiculous. They watched the games, they knew what the scores were, and they were supposed to somehow magically discount that.
But what they said was it will affect seeding. And I'm defending the committee here because I think they did a pretty good job last year.
I think they did a pretty good job too. I'm kind of pointing out that the system was dumb, not that they did anything wrong.
I don't know if it is dumb, because let's take the Penn State, Oregon. Penn State, if they win the game, they're the number 1 overall seed or number 2 overall seed. One of the two.
Sure.
But if Oregon wins it, they're the number 1 or number 2 overall seed. In their case, number 1 seed, because they were the only undefeated team in the regular season last year through championship games. So and therefore, Penn State had to go to 5 or lower, which actually was a lucky for them because of the stupid buys and everything, because of the playoff format with the stupid buys and automatic qualifiers. So they got into a stellar position to make a run, and they made this great run in the playoffs, and they got no credit for it because they were teams Franklin should have beat again. So yeah, is that the playoff committee said make seedings, and it will affect seedings, and it did affect seedings. Texas was not the conference championship, so they had to be fifth or sixth or whatever they ended up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So that's good. It's exciting that when is week 0 game? Is that Friday night or is that Saturday night?
We've got 3 games on Saturday. We've got the best
Farmageddon,
game.
right?
Yeah, we got Farmageddon, Iowa State, Kansas State. We've got Stanford and Hawaii, and we've got Fresno State and shoot, I forget, somebody in the power conference. I don't remember.
Nebraska, they always seem to get week 0.
No, they've got Cincinnati in week 1 on a Thursday night.
Oh, they got okay.
Yeah, we'll look it up here.
Yeah,
Fresno State and somebody. It's a fairly decent game. Kansas, there we go. Kansas and Fresno State.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's nice talking to you. It's always one of the best discussions we have, except for the Thursday night and Tuesday night, of course.
Of course.
Right.
Can't compare to those.
All right.
All right,
Blue Mark.
thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
All right.
So let's line up week 0. In that previous discussion, got me a bit fired up to do what I always do, but I actually was going to punt it, and that's produce prediction videos. Now, we produced, I think I counted 37 prediction videos for individual teams, but we should wrap it all up together and release the conference championship and conference standing predictions, and then also the college football playoff. So maybe I'll get on that this week, just in time for kickoff on Saturday. I don't know when I'm going to get it done. So on Saturday, we actually have, I think, 4 or 5 games. So, yeah, Kansas State and Iowa State, that's a heck of a matchup. And so I'm all in noon Eastern, ESPN, Iowa State, Kansas State from Dublin. Idaho State and UNLV. Dan Mullen, of course, on the sideline in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. Doesn't appear that you can see that game in any such way. Fresno State and Kansas, that's a Fox game at 6:30 Eastern. Sign me up for that one. Want to be able to check out those teams as well. We'll probably not check in on Sam Houston and Western Kentucky, although, of course, with only one other game on during commercial breaks, hey, check in on Sam Houston and Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers at home to open 2025, and then the late night game. That is not a late night game, as I anticipated there. 7:30 Eastern, CBS Paramount Plus. So this one might be difficult to find as well. Stanford and Hawaii. And then we've got our 24-hour marathon that kicks off bright and early Thursday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern. So that's our annual 24-hour kickoff marathon, week 1 kickoff marathon. You and me in 24 hours together, or me for 19 and somebody else for 3 and somebody else for 2, something like that. And Thursday, we've got a 5:30 game. I love that. I love that. We've got these games kicking off at 7, 8 o'clock in prime time, of course. But, you can catch an hour and a half of Boise State and South Florida before anybody else kicks off. Rutgers and Ohio. Look out, Rutgers. The Big Ten possibly in a few group of 5 fights in week 1. Rutgers, Ohio, Minnesota, Buffalo come to mind. East Carolina, NC State's on the ACC network on that Thursday night. And then later that night, we've got, again, the games that most of us will be locked in on. I do want to see Minnesota and Buffalo. That's on FS1. They kick off at the same time as Nebraska and Cincinnati on ESPN. And another lookout game here. Miami of Ohio traveling to Madison to take on the Badgers. And would that not be a rough start to what could possibly be Luke Fickell's final season in Madison? Possibly. Talk about a rough schedule. Well, we do appreciate everyone who is here at the Voice of College Football, and my night is not through. It is roughly 7 o'clock Eastern time, and I'll be back in less than 3 hours with the College Football Show late night. And think of something you want to ask me, challenge me on, question me, comment, and give me a call tonight at 10 Eastern right here at the Voice of College Football. We'll be back in less than 3 hours. College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.